We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.
Good morning and welcome to the 2222 edition of Navigating the Astrological Matrix. I'm your host, Robert Phoenix, and I will be joined here today by SiStar Myrah. And I'm not sure when she's coming. I thought she would be here at the top of the hour. Somebody just called in. It's an 818 number. And I believe that's a Burbank number. At least that's what I have here on my screen, but it could be her. Anyway, let me just give you an introduction about today's show, what we're going to be doing, who's going to be on it, and how it's going to go down. So my scheduled guest is SiStar Myrah, and she is an astrologer, an intuitive consultant, an esotericist. She's a priestess. She's a high priestess, and she is a truth seeker as well. And we talked a little bit on the phone prior to the show, and I think she's got 3 or 4 planets in Sagittarius, so you can rest assured that truth is at the top of her pyramid. So we're going to have her on today, and we're going to be talking about the Super Bowl. We're going to be talking about Madonna and what happened at the Super Bowl. And some of you have seen my post, which outside of Tiger Woods has been the most popular post on my site of all time, and continues to garner a great deal of attention and a number of hits. And we're going to talk about the Super Bowl and the symbolism of the Super Bowl, and not just the symbolism of this Super Bowl, but SiStar Myrah is an expert at decoding Super Bowls and has gotten into, at least to my knowledge, the last 10. So we're going to talk about the Super Bowl and how it captures people's attention. Now look, I wrote about this. The Super Bowl is one of the most watched events on the planet. So if you wanted to grab a hold of people and insert programs or inject memes into their psyche, if you wanted to hack their spirit, there is no other event except for maybe the presidential election. But even the presidential election might be dwarfed by the Super Bowl. There's no other event besides the Super Bowl that has as much power to influence a massive amount of people. Maybe the final of the World Cup. And when we talk with SiStar Myrah, we'll ask her about the World Cup and see what she thinks about that. But really, this is about the Super Bowl. This is about what happened with Madonna. In some ways, unprecedented. And I've seen a lot of Super Bowl halftime shows. Of course, last year's Super Bowl halftime performance was Pete Townsend and The Who, and of course there was the NCIS tie-in. Since the Super Bowl, I believe, was on CBS last year, if I'm not mistaken. But, of course, Pete Townsend is a pedophile. He's a registered sex offender in Britain. And I think there was a lot of inside ribbing that was going on with The Who on stage at last year's Super Bowl, because culturally they're not relevant. Madonna is culturally slightly more relevant. But we're going to talk about this with SiStar Myrah. We're going to talk about the Grammys and the travesty that the Grammys was on the heels of the tragic passing of Whitney Houston. And it wasn't just the passing. This was very dark and very very conscious. It was a dark ritual. We'll talk a lot more about that. And I'm assuming that Whitney Houston will take up the bulk of our conversation as well, because it's a very big deal, and very chilling and frightening, and also something that we need to be aware of in terms of what's happening. Now, before I bring SiStar Myrah on, and I think she has entered into the call queue, I just wanted to read very quickly an email that I received from Ellis Taylor, a good friend of the show. And Ellis sent me just a quick update, and maybe we can bring this up with SiStar Myrah. And let's see what we have here. What do we have? Let's see if we can just find Ellis's email. He sent this. This is from his buzz. If you don't know Ellis, Ellis is one of the master numerologists on the planet, a very dear friend, and a very alive, conscious, and multidimensional human. So this is what Ellis sent me yesterday. It says 1212 sound checks. We sent this on the date yesterday was 2/12/212. Here's what he wrote. He said, I didn't know until yesterday evening, but the British music industry's Brit A Awards ceremony was on last night, and the run-up to the new moon, about a half an hour after the show at 22:35, interestingly taking place on 2/12/212 date, on the 52nd day of 2012, 201, so there is the 2 and the 1, days before the closing of the Paralympics on 9/9/2012. These games begin on what would have been Michael Jackson's 54th birthday. So we have a sequence of nines here. This is what Ellis is just brilliant at. On 11th February 2012, 11/22/12, 12th February 2012, 1/2/2/2/1/2, the 54th Grammy Awards were held in Los Angeles. The body of Whitney Houston, 16 above them, her funeral had taken place on a 16 date as well, 3 days prior to the Brits, and 37 days, 2/1/2/1/2/1/2012, 37 days before 21/21/2012. Amy Winehouse had died exactly 210 days, again 21, 30 weeks before Whitney's funeral. During the Brits, the passing of both Whitney and Amy Winehouse, 11/11, were acknowledged. Amy Winehouse's funeral had taken place 210 days, 30 weeks, see the mirror, before this year's show, 3 days after her death. She died on a 16 date. Adele's album 21, again dealing with 21 and 12, won the Best Album category at both ceremonies. It is a brilliant album, deserved to win, in my view, but what a handy title she served up. Again, Ellis all over this decoding 1/2/2/1/2/1, 21/12. Today we're at 22/22/21/12. I think we can safely mark this one down as a stepstone in the megaspell. And then he said that I heard during the show for the first time that Blur, and he did the numerology in Blur, 16 will be headlining the London Olympics closing ceremony, playing in Hyde Park 9/9 on the glorious 12th of August. Hyde Park is a 9/9 number. Glorious 12th of August, 16th, and discovered later that they would be joined by two good bands, but hardly the cream. New Order. New Order is closing out the London Olympics, and New Order is 5/5, and then, of course, the Specials will also be playing there as well, Specials being an 11. So Ellis is all over this, and this is part of his decoding of the megaspell leading up to the London Olympics. And in my estimation, the London Olympics are a huge event. Enormous event, and a very dark one. 13,000 troops, by the way, will be on the streets of London during the time of the London Olympics. And London will be wired tighter than a drum during those Olympics. When I say wired, not just with 13,000 troops, and they will be there all over the streets of London, but there will not be a nook and cranny in the city of London that will not have a camera or a microphone placed in the city. When I say wired, that's what I mean by wired. So let's get into this. Let's drop down a few levels, and let's bring on Sister Myra. We're going to be learning about her together. I know a little bit about her. I listened to an interview with her on Blog Talk Radio. She was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And when she got into what was going on with the halftime ritual at the Olympics, at the Super Bowl, she was not only breaking it down, but she was taking it into another zone. And it was one that we all have our filters, and we all look at things from our cultural and our individual perspectives. So my cultural and individual perspective may not be the same as hers, and I'm really interested in finding out more about hers, because when I heard it, it was very gripping, and she looks at this from the perspective of a black female and what is taking place as a result of not just this ritual, but in terms of culture in general. So without any further hesitation or delay, it is my great pleasure to bring on Sister Myra. Hello, Sister Myra.
Hi, Robert. Thank you for having me on your show. I definitely appreciate you looking at this or wanting to see this from the black female perspective. We don't really see a lot of that, you know. Yeah. So this is quite an honor for me to be able to speak to your audience from that perspective.
Well, it's an honor. It's an honor for me to have you on the show, and for us to be able to have that perspective broken down and opened up before us. Before we get into this, I'd love to know just a little bit more about you. I know that you're based out of North Carolina. You're an astrologer. You're a counselor. You're a healer. You've got a lot going on.
Yes.
Can you just real briefly just try to condense a little bit about who you are and how you got on this path, and how you began to evolve your path to breaking down what's happening socially on a symbolic level, because I think that's what's going to really interest a lot of the folks listening today.
All right. I call myself a holistic. And what I mean by that is that I actually look at energy, spiritual energy. So if you're looking at what I'm saying from a personal perspective, you're really not going to be able to follow me. What I say is that the physical is individual and the spiritual is the collective. It's all about balance, balancing opposites. I don't look at the astrological chart as 12 signs. I actually look at it as 6. It's not until you put the two opposites together do you create the whole, or holistic. Mm-hmm. See, and I always use Aries and Libra, to example that. Aries being the sign of the warrior, opposite Libra, the sign of the peacemaker. Right. If you separate the two, you have Aries running around kicking butt all over town. Right. And you have Libra with no backbone. Yeah. So it's not until you put the two together that you have a warrior for justice or right. taking a stand for peace. So I think every astrological sign comes together in that axis to represent the whole energy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not until you put those two in equal balance do you have the complete idea about what that energy is symbolizing. So this is why I call myself a holistic. So I actually got into this studying astrology when everyone was talking about what's your sign. I'm a Capricorn, and I thought my sign was kind of boring. And so I studied all of the signs, and it's not until you study all of the signs that you get the whole view of, this holistic view, and that's what actually put me on the path. I've since come to appreciate my sign very much, but that is what put me on the path of looking at holistic energy and the balance of opposites, which to me is the formula for creation. It's not until you balance opposites equally that do you have the whole.
Yeah. Capricorn is a very underrated sign as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
Yeah. The Capricorn is capable of not only great achievements, but also great wisdom and great insights, and quietly very passionate people.
Oh yes.
So I'm with you. I'm definitely with you on the. I've got Saturn in Capricorn, which I've learned to love in my life.
Wow.
Yeah. 11 degrees, Saturn Capricorn.
Oh my! So a master in Saturn Capricorn energy. Saturn being the ruler of Capricorn. So I actually have a Aries signature because most of my energy. My element is fire, and then, of course, my mode is cardinal. So the cardinal fire sign is Aries, so it gives me an Aries signature. So a lot of people, when they see my passion come out from underneath all this earth, that's what I tell them. It's just my Aries coming out, and I can get very passionate about this information.
You were certainly passionate on that show that I listened to you on. You were on fire in that show. Let's talk a little bit about your transition, because everybody goes through, I think, a transition where they begin to, especially in the esoteric realm, you begin to look around and you begin to see these symbols crop up in our media, in our culture, and then you begin to say, well, let's start putting these things together, and let's go into reverse mode. 10, 15 years ago, these symbols were there, but they weren't so egregious and they weren't so in our face, and now they're everywhere. And let's talk about the awakening moment for you, where you all of a sudden put those glasses on from They Live, and you saw what was happening. You said, what? I've got to decode the bigger picture here. When was that awakening for you? What was that like for you?
Actually, I'm originally from Omaha, Nebraska. And I left Omaha in '89 and moved to Atlanta, Georgia. I stayed there for 17 years. It's when I really started getting into symbolism. I started getting into the metaphysic. I was introduced into the metaphysic community. And this is when, and it started with the Super Bowl ritual in right after 9/11. When I really began to see the symbolic, ritualistic aspect of the Super Bowl. My thing is, anytime you pull your energy, that is how you create a spirit. You see, so any of these mass rituals, any of these mass participation is how they perform their rituals. Like you said, the Olympics, the Super Bowl, any way you pull your energy is how you create the spirit, and that's the energy you're going to see unfold as a result of that. The Super Bowl is an annual ritual, and I first started paying attention, like I said, right after 9/11, and where they had the Super Bowl. This was the realms versus the patriarchs, and it was in New Orleans, and it was like they moved up Mardi Gras, and they moved back the Super Bowl so that there would be a combination of rituals at that time.
Wow.
This was centered around the theme War on America. And this is the energy they used to justify going into, was it Iraq or Iran?
Iraq. Yeah, it was Afghanistan originally.
Yes.
And then they went into Iraq after that.
Yes. So that's when I first started taking notice of how the symbolism of the Super Bowl corresponded with the energy that they were trying to energize to unfold. And especially with the patriarchs. And when I look at these symbols of the teams, I don't look at the literal team. I go actually to their symbols to get the bigger picture. So the patriarchs, of course, is representing the system, the patriarch spirit, you see. And I looked at the realms. Of course, that takes you back to Aries energy,
right?
Which symbolically, like you said, culturally, equates to Haru, you see.
Yeah.
So the patriarchs coming up against Haru. And this is how I watch the patriarchs in every Super Bowl come up against what I call the royal family of energy. I look at the energy to see the elements. So I define the elements as looking at the characteristics of the God family. Fire element represents the prince. Aries would be the cardinal. The cardinal is the royalty aspect. So the cardinal Aries represented the prince. Cardinal Cancer represents the queen. The cardinal Libra represents the king. Their element represents the father. And then the earth element represents the daughter. So the cardinal Earth, Capricorn, represents the daughter. She's the last earth sign. She sits at the top of the astrological chart. This is why I call her the high priestess. Anytime you're dealing with the earth element, you're dealing with value, character, the worth, the manifestation. If you're looking at the fire, that's the power, the passion, the prince, the prince of power. The water, of course, is the nurturer, the mama, you see, the love, the unconditional love. And then the father, the air, is the knowing. He is also connected with the spirit. So I watched as the patriarchs took on the whole royal family, starting with Aries, starting with the realms, or the prince. Then they went on in the Super Bowl to take down the matriarch, which was the patriarchs against North Carolina. This was, of course, Charlotte represents Queen Charlotte, or the matriarch. And this is, of course, where we had the Janet Jackson debacle, where you had Justin Timberlake, going up against the matriarch.
The malfunction, the wardrobe malfunction.
Yes, the malfunction. And what was interesting about this Super Bowl, when they first announced that Madonna was going to do the halftime ritual, that was her first comment. You're not going to see any malfunction, costume malfunction. She immediately started undermining Janet Jackson. That was when my first antenna came up, you see.
Yeah. Hey, can we stop just 1 second? I want to go back to that first Super Bowl, because I think you brought up a really great point with that first Super Bowl. And as you were talking, I was going back in my brain, and I was thinking about, well, what was going on then, right? And, obviously you have this Aries energy, which is what you're talking about, the cardinal energy initiating a cycle, and coming really full cycle to 2012 with this game against the Patriots and the Giants, and a very interesting 12-year cycle. And at that time, the Rams literally become the sacrificial ram for what happens with these wars and leading into war. And then I was thinking about, well, who was the quarterback of the Rams? The quarterback of the Rams was Kurt Warner, right? Kurt Warner. And Kurt Warner was a devout Christian. War, right. And who was the coach of the Rams? It was Mike Martz.
Oh, my gosh.
So to your point, they were really dialing that energy up, weren't they?
Yes, absolutely. And when you start examining those symbols, you will see all of these, it will validate itself. You will see, through the names, even this is what turned me on to what the symbolism was when it came to Eli Manning. You see, the EL. See, I'm on the, I have a saying that follow the trail of the EL. EL denotes royalty. That's divinity. So you see that EL, Elohim, you'll see that all over when it comes to a royal spiritual energy. So the Eli Manning is what gave me the symbolism for this Super Bowl. But here I go ahead. I jump ahead.
Go back to the Janet Jackson, Carolina pantheistic Super Bowl, because on the interview that I heard with you, you brought up a really, I think, salient point, and one that's central to this theme that you're developing, which is the introduction of the hybrid. This is where I think things really take off.
Yes. Well, actually, the hybrid, when the patriarchs took on the Eagles, the Philadelphia Eagles, that represented the father, the knowing, the air element. And this deals with the illusionary programming, the father of illusion. So that's where we more got into introducing the hybrid. This is when they actually introduced the hybrid car.
Right.
But going back to the matriarch, see, you're looking at the patriarch in particular taking on the whole royal family. So they started with the realm or the prince. Then they took on the matriarch, North Carolina, and they symbolized this through the Janet Jackson debacle with the Justin Timberlake representing the patriarch. Debasing and humiliating the matriarch, Janet Jackson, which was also symbolic of the game, which with North Carolina representing the matriarch or the Panthers, in Charlotte, Queen Charlotte, matriarch, and then, of course, the patriarch. So that was them taking down the queen or the royal mother. And then we moved on to, that's when we moved on to the Eagles, with the patriarchs actually taking down the father symbolically. And as you mentioned, this is where they introduced the hybrid car. This is where they introduced, the halftime performance was called Bridging Generation. And I kept trying to figure out what is symbolic about this. The halftime performers were the Black Eyed Peas, you had Alicia Keys, and you also had Earth, Wind, and Fire. And so the hybrid, in my definition, is a child of a white mother and a black father. Because this is where you I know they talk about the one drop rule or one drop of black blood, but that's not true.
Right.
It's about the genetics of your mother. You are who your mother is. I always ask people, ask a Jewish person what makes them a Jew, and they will tell you their mother. Well, that is the same that for any culture. You are who your mother is. But because the white mother does not have the melanin, does not have the color, that means that her child will take on the characteristics and appearance of the seed or the father. So they will look like the father when actually they are the genetics of the mother.
Interesting. Very
interesting. So this was the Alicia Keys is actually, follows that profile. And then I kept wondering, now in my breakdown of the elements, the water element does represent the black mother or the black mama, the original. I say all energy vibrations came from blackness. You can only get all colors out of black. So when we talk about the original black mother, that's what I'm talking about. Everything began originally from the color vibration of blackness.
And this relates to Cancer, obviously. Am I right? The sign Cancer?
Yes.
Okay.
The water element in particular.
Mm-hmm.
I take it to a higher level when I look at the elemental, you see.
Right.
There's 4 members of the God family, and you look at their characteristics through the element. The water is the mama, the fire is the son, the air is the father, and the earth is the daughter of this God family. So when I looked at bridging generations, I kept looking, and all of a sudden it stood up, bridging genes. The word bridging genes and bridging generations.
Right.
And I kept trying to understand what earth, wind, and fire had to do with it until you look at the elements of earth, wind, and fire. You will find that it's missing what? The water, or the black mama.
Right.
So the only way to produce the hybrid is by removing the black mama, because any seed that goes in the black mama will come out black.
Right. Well,
so that has to be removed.
Here's another little wrinkle for you on that one. It just popped into my brain. Okay, so the lead singer for Earth, Wind, and Fire is Maurice White. Yes. Right?
Yes.
And Maurice, and I've done research on the name Maurice, is a derivative of Morris. And, Morris is actually a derivative of Maurice, or Moritz, who was an Egyptian general who refused to slay Christians, and he was sanctified as a saint. And the name Moritz essentially means the dark one. So, again, what we have in the lead singer of Earth, Wind, and Fire is this hybrid of Moritz, the dark one, with White as the lead singer of Earth, Wind, and Fire. So there you go.
Wow.
There's another example of this happening. Yeah.
I love that. I think very conceptually, so I do depend on others to be able to break down the details as you just did. That's amazing to me.
Well, I wouldn't have gone there if we weren't having this conversation, right?
Yes.
I had not thought of that before, but because we're sharing this now, it's all happening in real time for us.
Yes, absolutely. So that was the theme. And see, when we're dealing with the father, and this was the patriarchs taking out the father with the eagles, because that represented the air element. And anytime we're dealing with the air element, we're dealing with the knowing, we're dealing with the mind. This is the mental programming of the illusion. So programming, in the illusion to replace the original black people with an imitation, you see.
Yeah.
So all of this, so that took down the whole royal family. And the ritual where they took out the black mama, this is telling you how they're going to create the hybrid, how they're going to manipulate mentally, this creation of this hybrid scenario and replace the true original black people with an imitation. And, of course, this leads me all the way even to Obama, you see.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. As, we're thinking we have elected the first black president, which is really not true. You elected the first Jewish president, you see.
Right.
Because his mama was a white Jew. And so, this gets into my analyzation of, him representing the Antichrist, you see. Standing in a place you ought not, which means standing as a black man, which you are not. Now, I'm not talking from a personal position, so I hope anyone don't take me personally. I only talk from a collective or a symbolic understanding. Each individual case, we get a different perspective when we look at it from a personal, but I only concerned with the collective or the conceptual, you see. And this goes all the way back to, everything is connected. All these Super Bowls connect up in their symbolism of what is unfolding and and the final summation of what was always building through these Super Bowls was what Madonna did. at this Super Bowl, this past Super Bowl. So this is where they introduced the idea of the hybrid in that scenario.
Mm-hmm.
The only one that the patriarchs was not willing to take out was the daughter. And the daughter is represented through the Steelers. Now, remember, I told you the EL. Follow the trail of the EL.
Right.
So when you look at the Steelers, you definitely see the EL representing the royal daughter.
Mm-hmm.
So when it came time for the Steelers to step up into the Super Bowl, of course, the patriarchs, of course, they're both AFC teams, so they would not be able to play in the Super Bowl. So instead, the Steelers, I connect to the daughter or the Cinderella energy. You hear the EL in Cinderella. When I break down Cinderella, the word cinder, of course, means carbon or black. They told you Cinderella was named that because she stood too close to the fireplace when she was reading and she got soot on her face, but it's really symbolic of her representing the black daughter. And cinder is carbon or black, and then if you look at the EL, that's the title of divinity, and La means feminine. So when you break down Cinderella, you get the black divine feminine. And this is what the Steelers, were playing the role as Cinderella when in Detroit, when the Super Bowl was in Detroit against the Seattle Seahawks. Now, the Seattle Seahawks actually represented the wicked stepmother of the Cinderella story, the water element, you see. And coming up against Cinderella. And then we had on the stage, shaped like a tongue, we had the Rolling Stones in Detroit. And they're singing a song, I Can't Get No Satisfaction. Now, in my estimation, they were singing in behalf of the black woman, saying you can't get any satisfaction from your man because he's got the penis and the white woman has him. You see. But we will give you satisfaction through the tongue. Okay? And so now you have to look at the commercials and all when you're looking at these Super Bowl rituals, because the first commercial shows a white woman standing on the football field with a helmet on, and a white man runs up to her and throws her down. Okay? Next commercial shows a runway of models. And there are white models walking down the runway, and there are white judges around the white women judging the models. And then up in front of the runway, a black woman rises up out of the water. And she is real regal. She has silver liquid dripping off of her, and they're taking snapshots, pictures of her. You can see the bulbs popping, and she wheels around as if she's walking on water, and she walks off, and up from under her comes a black Cadillac, symbolic of the black cat or the black mama. So the black daughter rising to her power off the black back of the black mama universe.
Right.
And and whoever wins the MVP, is symbolic of who she would be passing the power to. So they thought it was going to be Rothenberger, the white man.
Right.
But the winner ended up being Heinz Ward.
Interesting.
So it's symbolic of her passing the power back to her black man.
Well, Heinz Ward is a hybrid.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, his mother is like,
Korean.
Samoan.
She's
Korean? Okay. Yeah.
I want to go back to this Rolling Stones thing, which you brought up. Because that's, I can't pass that up. All right.
Okay.
So
sure.
What you're saying with the Rolling Stones and the tongue is that okay? the white woman has the black male penis, but we have the tongue. Are you saying that this is about oral satisfaction? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Very
Yes,
interesting.
absolutely.
Very interesting. Yes. Have you ever seen True Romance? The movie True Romance?
No.
The beginning of the movie, it's with Gary Oldman and Samuel Jackson. The beginning of the movie, there's a scene in a hotel room, and there's a drug deal going down, and there's this whole conversation about oral sex and why black men won't perform oral sex and why white men will. It's all Quentin Tarantino, and how and there's this young black guy who's about to get shot, basically telling Gary Oldman's character, who is obviously he's white, plays Drexel, and he's a pimp, and he basically says, "You guys have ruined it for us." It's like you'll do anything, right? Now I thought about this again as you're talking, and who is a frequent collaborator with Mick Jagger, right? And I thought about it, and it's Tina Turner.
Yes.
And what about that last name, Turner? Right? to your point, okay? To your point, this is fascinating. So here's the very interesting aspect. I didn't want to pass that up. So,
okay, great.
So
I'm glad. I love that. Please do that, infuse, because I am going to talk more, symbolically, and I do appreciate, you supplying the details to support the symbolism.
Yeah. So then we have Heinz Ward now. Heinz Ward, who becomes the MVP.
Yes, but see, he and I know you said he's a hybrid, but see, the fact is, it's still the melanin context that we're looking at, the context, you see. So, so that is why symbolic. Then the next year after this, then we get 2 black coaches in the Super Bowl after that. Okay, the year after that, you had the Bears versus the Colts. You see.
Right. Tony and Lovey.
Yes. And now what do we have? But who? But Prince, the royal prince, on a stage shaped like the penis, of course.
Right.
He also has a guitar that's shaped like the penis, you see.
Yes.
And he has 2 black dancers up front, which represents the 2 black coaches. And then you have the marching band jamming like it's 1999. And at one point, Prince is Gemini.
Right.
And so he's the individual that I always call Sagittarius the sign of a star, you see, coming to the fulfillment and the fullness of your empowerment. So it was the individual Prince, Gemini, at one point a screen drops down and you see the resurrection of his penis through his guitar. So the resurrection of the individual black man into the collective empowerment represented as Sagittarius or a star. So the resurrection, you see, of the individual black man into the collective empowerment representative through a star or Sagittarius energy, the opposite sign of Gemini. And then after that, after we symbolize that resurrection, that is what leads us to the next Super Bowl, which of course is the Giants versus the Patriots.
Is Prince mixed by any chance?
I'm really not. I don't think so. Well, see, like I said, he has a black mama. You have to look at the mama. It's not so much of being mixed. It's about what is it the maternal line where you have, what is the maternal lineage? That's what you have to look at. And and he does have a black mama.
Okay.
So his resurrection, him symbolizing the resurrection. And then next step is the sleeping giants no longer sleeping dead. You see, the giants now coming up against the patriarch.
Right.
Now in this symbolism, we're going back to the Jack and the Beanstalk story, you see, where Jack climbs up the beanstalk to the realm of the giants. Well, see, they demonized the giants. The giant was really a benevolent giant, you see.
Mm-hmm.
He actually tried to give Jack some of the eggs, but he wanted the whole shebang. He ended up taking the harp and the goose. Now, the goose that laid the golden egg represented the prosperity of the giants, or the higher. And, of course, we're going back to the Neberu, the Nephilim.
The Nephilim, right, yeah.
The giants of old, him going up. And I always looked at Jack as representative of the Kennedy family.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes up and he steals the goose that lays the golden eggs, which is the prosperity. He also steals the harp, of course, the ability to control the weather. So we're looking at the HAARP, the harp.
Right, which is a symbol that comes up in the last Super Bowl as well.
Yes.
With the lyre or the harp player right at the beginning of the Madonna ritual.
Yes, absolutely. They're all connected. If you watch symbolically, you will see how they all are connected, that they're rolling off the back of each other, you see, in this symbolism. And there was a movie out, they played, it was some time ago, called Jack and the Beanstalk Story, The True Story. And this is where they really introduced, the fact that the giant was a benevolent giant, and how Jack came up and stole the power. But when he stole the power, then that realm began to die. And each Jack would die at 39 years of age, you see. And then the woman, and see, if you look at these movies, you have to understand the symbolism of it, because the woman had the black hair, which represented actually a black woman. Came down to bring Jack up before the spiritual console. And that's when they revealed the story of what happened. And they said, we're going to, in order to turn things back around, we have to sacrifice you. But he's like, well, I never heard the story like that. I always heard the fee-fi-fo-fum, that the giant was, a mean giant. And, and he said, I didn't do this. You can't hold me accountable. And the spiritual council tells him, did you benefit from what your ancestors did? And if you benefited from what your ancestors did, then you're going to have to be the one to pay the cost to turn this around. And the penalty is death. But symbolically, the black woman rescues him. They are able to recover the harp and the goose, and and all is well. You see, and that story of the Jack and the Beanstalk, the true story. This is how they represented it, and this is what was symbolic of the first meeting between the giants and the patriarchs. You see,
right.
So
and then you have in that Super Bowl, you also have David Tyree, right? Who ends up being the hero of that Super Bowl. And so in a really interesting kind of blend of synthesis, you have David playing for the Goliaths.
Yes.
And Tyree is an interesting name because it's very close to Tyre, and Hiram of Tyre, who is one of the architects of the Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem. So, so now you've got David, and then you've got Tyre, or David of Tyre. And that's a fascinating moment where it literally takes the ball and pins it to the crown chakra. That's how he catches the ball in that game. Do you remember that?
Oh my, yes, oh my. Wow, I love the way you're bringing forth the details. I do miss the details.
Well, you're a Sagittarius. You got all that Sagittarian energy. You're seeing the big
Yes, I do. I have a Sagittarius Mercury, and not only that, my Sagittarius Mercury is in my 9th house. So, it's like my small details get lost in the larger picture. I tell people I can ride around in the car all day talking about the meaning of the universe, get out of the car, someone asks me what color it is, I'm clueless. I'm like, I don't know, because I don't see the small details. They get lost in the larger picture. They just get sucked up in the larger picture. So,
well, you're Jove, and I'm Hermes today. I'm just here to help you out.
Yes. And I have a friend like that in L.A. She's a Libra. And we just have so much fun doing that, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I do the conceptual, and then she'll bring forth the details. So
so now we have the Giants who win again, and where are we after that? Now, are we coming up to the Saints? This is a big one, right? The Saints Super Bowl.
Yes, the Saints and the Colts. You see.
Yeah.
Now this comes, and this is the year, okay, that we have the Hades earthquake. You see.
Yeah.
And this also goes back to the Madonna theme, because the earthquake, we have a bunch of white families coming to take the children. You know,
that's right.
They took all these black children from Hades, from that earthquake, and assimilated them all throughout. I don't know how many nations. They said hundreds of children were taken from Hades at that time. You see, so.
Yeah.
This is all about actually Christianity versus the Voodoo religion.
Right.
With so you got New Orleans representing, of course, the Voodoo, and then you've got the Colts representing Christianity. You see, Jesus riding on the back of a colt into Bethlehem.
Right.
So taking the young children and reprogramming them with a new mama, you see.
Interesting.
A white mother, because this is what Madonna's theme was. This is what I say Madonna's theme was, which led me to Whitney Houston, because her theme was, I've taken your man, black woman, and I'm going to take you out, and then I'm going to become a surrogate mother to your children. And, of course, Madonna has gone over into Africa, and she has, you know, adopted her a little boy, which she named David. She said she was looking for a special child.
David, there's that name again, huh? David.
That's David. And see, because I also did a lecture on the Star of David on November the 8th, 2003, when the planets were sitting in the configuration of the Star of David. And this was talking about how we have been wounded through Willie Lynch, and how those wounds will now be healed. And each point of that Star of David represented each member of this family. The father, Saturn in Cancer, being cut off from the family, you know, in his wounded state, not being able to protect the family. The moon in Taurus, representing the mama on the first level. See, the Star of David was sitting on its side, giving you 3 levels of the family members. So you had the father, the mother on the first level, brother and sister on the second level, and son and daughter on the third level. The father, Saturn in Cancer, the sign of unconditional love. So in his wounding, he become conditional in his love for the family, especially the daughter, because Cancer opposite Capricorn. Capricorn represented the daughter, Chiron in Capricorn, which is ancient wounds.
Right.
And the mama was the moon was in Taurus. Of course, the sun was in Scorpio on November the 8th. So the mother and son aspect, you see.
Right.
And there was a full lunar eclipse on that day. You know, so it went through each member and how we have been wounded, but it was also indicating how those wounds are to be healed. And so Taurus being the sign of value, you know, I call it the sign of value. I know they've turned it into materialism, but at a higher vibration.
I agree with you. It's about value. I totally agree with you. Yes.
Yes. And so the lunar, and I asked my spirit why the Star of David, and it took me back to the David and Goliath story. And it said, how did David slay Goliath? With a stone. So the first earth sign is Taurus. So that was symbolic with that lunar eclipse of the mama, after being healed in her value, passing the stone of value to the sun from Taurus to Scorpio. This activates his emotional transformation. He now takes his value away from the system or the illusion, and brings it back to the mama, transforms, and he then turns and redeems the daughter. The daughter, represented as Chiron and Capricorn, she was the only one who did not compromise her value as a black woman. The mama did. She became, when they cut off the father, she compromised her value and became the slave master's mistress. And then she also taught the sister, which was Jupiter in Virgo in that Star of David on the second level. She taught the sister to worship materialism, or the white man through materialism. Jupiter in Virgo. That means she became polluted in her value rather than the cleansing and purification of her value, you see, in her wounded state. And she did not stay true to her brother, which was represented as Mars in Pisces. Mars being the sexual energy or the power energy. And in Pisces, he went into escapism or fantasy land sexually. And this is where he gained the attitude, egotistically, I can have any color woman in the kingdom that I desire. Why should I stay true to the black one? So he did not stay true to his woman. He did not protect the value of his woman or his sister. And then, of course, the sun in Scorpio. The lowest vibration of Scorpio is controlling and abusive, you see. So now he's become controlling and abusive to the daughter, who is the one who did not compromise her value and stayed true to her worth and her value as a black woman. And that's why she is being undermined and in her value by the sun. But when the mama is healed and passes the stone of value to the sun, he now emotionally transforms, and he then redeems the daughter and lifts her up, you see. Which automatically takes down Goliath, you see, because I talk energy. So the opposite energy of black woman, of course, is white man. So, and in order for him to be up, she has to be down. But energy is spiral. So when you lift her up, you automatically take down the Goliath or the illusion or the lie.
So what year was the Star David? Was this like 90? Was it 98, 99? When was that?
No, this was in 2003. 2003.
Okay.
And we just had the 8th anniversary of the Star of David on November 8th, 2011, which was actually the 8th rotation in the 8th sign of the zodiac, you see, which was very significant, you see.
So,
and this is what go ahead. I'm sorry, because I will run on. Go ahead.
Yeah, so culturally, so we have the Star of David in 2003. And now, did you see a market shift in the cultural programming of this emergence of the hybrid race or the diminution of the black female at that time? What were you looking at?
Oh, absolutely. And I know we only got a few minutes, but absolutely.
No, we can go over some time. This is good stuff. So what? Because we got to talk about Whitney Houston too. So let's.
Yes, absolutely, and all of it ties together because now, Let's go back. Let's go back to the Super Bowl where we have the inauguration of Obama, the Super Bowl at that time. Now, if you look up the word augur, it's a ritual, which indicates a flock of birds, you see, and this ritual, this flock of birds, it's a ritual where you're trying to assume power that's not rightfully yours. That's what the nature of this ritual is. And this is where we had a flock of birds that went into the jet airplane that year, and it fell into the Hudson Bay, you see.
And you're talking Jennifer Hudson now. Is that where you're going?
Yes, Jennifer Hudson, absolutely. And also the last 4 teams in the Super Bowl, in the playoffs for the Super Bowl, was the Cardinals, the Eagles, and the Ravens against who? The Steelers. So the Steelers representing the royal daughter, and then you have the flock of birds, you see. And it ends up being the Cardinals and the Steelers. So this is the Roman Catholic Church trying to assume the power that is rightfully daughter earth or daughter character, you see.
Right.
And this is the same year that we had Obama go into a meeting with the Pope, who signs the edit saying that he is now going to become the moral barometer for the world, you see.
Right.
Because we can't do it ourselves. So he's going to have to dictate the moral temperature of the world based on Christian principles. All this corresponds. And then at the inauguration, we get, Obama, and he brings Beyonce in to sing the song At Last, which is the signature song of Etta James. Okay?
Yeah.
And Etta James, because Beyonce played Etta James in the movie Cadillac Record. Etta James has a black mama, but her daddy was white, which was Minnesota Fat.
That's right. Yeah. Yep.
Beyonce actually has a white mother. I know she appears. She's you have to go all the way back to her great grandmother to find her white maternal ancestry.
So I've got some scoop on Beyonce.
Yes.
So the scoop on Beyonce, this comes from her friend, very, very, very dear friend, who hung out with Beyonce's cousin, and the cousin claims that Beyonce is Italian, and that what's his name, Knowles, her father, Matthew Knowles, is not even her father.
Wow.
So, yeah. There's a
I
little
can believe
Beyonce
that.
info for you. Yeah.
Yeah. So that shows you how they matched up Beyonce against Etta James, you see. One, and both of mixed races, but one representing the black woman, the other representing the hybrid, you see.
Yeah.
And that is why Obama, also the king hybrid, he brings Beyonce rather than Etta James to sing the song At Last. Now, At Last is the song about the black woman singing about her man finally coming home to her. No more lonely nights, She's singing about, at last, my man has come home to me. So this is how Beyonce is trying to, undermine that, and she's going to sing it for, of course, the hybrid king, Obama. And Etta James not understanding this, like, why didn't you come and get me to sing that song? I'm the, that's my signature. Why would you go get someone else? Why would you get Beyonce to do it? She didn't understand, the metaphysical science of what they were doing with that.
Yeah.
And so they even at the music award, when Beyonce sang her song at the end, she taunted Etta James by singing a little litany of At Last, just to taunt her, to say, I got the platform, I'm going to, and I'm going to, in your face, you see.
Yeah.
So how mysterious does that make it that when Beyonce has her child on January the 7th, the day before my birthday, she has this child on January the 7th, and then 13 days later, on January the 20th, Etta James dies.
Wow, that is really, that is remarkable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and remarkable in a pretty dark kind of way.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and what is Beyonce's daughter's name again? Is it Blue?
ivy blue, and that's the ritual. When I looked up the ritual for 44, see, this number 4 is playing a strategic, the symbolism of the 4. The 4 is what they're actually using. I haven't quite figured out why the 4, but when we looked up the ritual, the 44 is about bringing in an entity that deals with Mercury, and of course Beyonce is Virgo. That brings in an entity who has to have, 3 letters in its name, Ivy. And if you look at Ivy, it's actually the Roman numeral 1 and the V, which equals 4, with the Y at the end.
Uh-huh.
Ivy blue. And this entity has to come in under a Capricorn sun.
Uh-huh.
And of course, that was supposed to happen on the 4th floor of the hospital. You add up Beyonce's birthday numbers, you get 4. You add up Jay-Z's, you get 4. And you add up the Ivy Blues, you also get 4, you see.
Uh-huh.
And, of course, Whitney Houston was on the 4th floor, and then, like you said, the 13 adds up to 4. And even Madonna has a video out called 4 Minutes.
Interesting. Huh.
And in this 4 minutes, she's indicating the end of the world. We got 4 minutes. Time is running out. Do what you want to do. Have fun. Do everything. Get decadent because there's 4 minutes left.
Interesting. You know what's really fascinating is I just did an interview with Abel Ferrara, who was the director of Bad Lieutenant with Harvey Keitel. And his latest movie is called 444, and it's about the end of the world. Yes.
So this 4, you see the reoccurring theme of the 4 in this, you see. And Beyonce and Jay-Z, they 440. That's their number, 440. They're always promoting this 4. And like you said, you saw it show up again in this Super Bowl. The 4 shows up with Etta James, 13 days. You add up the between Beyonce's giving birth, and then you get Christina Aguilera singing at Etta James Memorial the song "At Last," and then they say blood runs down her legs. You see, I know they said it was Tanner, but of course. That's the cover story. But blood runs down her leg the same as they indicated that the blood on Whitney Houston's leg.
Mm-hmm.
And the blood, of course, represents life and death. And the life, in other words, Beyonce bringing forth a new life, while Etta James, the death of Etta James, which symbolically is the death of the original black woman as she's being replaced by the hybrid black woman.
Wow, this is incredibly mind-blowing. I'm talking with Sister Myra live from North Carolina, and we're going down a pretty interesting rabbit hole today. As we were talking, we started to get into this transference of Whitney Houston to Jennifer Hudson.
Yes.
As the new diva, right?
Absolutely.
Well, just out of curiosity, while we were talking, I decided to go online and look at a map of New York City. And sure enough, Hudson Street and Houston Street intersect in New York.
Oh, my gosh.
And it was a hunch that I had that they would, and they do.
Yes. Absolutely. I mean, this is the symbolism, that goes over our heads if we're not aware. If we continue to look at things only from a literal perspective, this is how it's been going over our heads. As you said, the symbolism seems to be becoming more and more evident. I think the symbols have always been there. It's just that we haven't been looking at it from that perspective. Because when I did move to Atlanta, and I began to see your symbols, you can see it all around you. If you go to the MARTA station, the gate and the fence are nothing but obelisks, you see.
Right.
It's all around us. And
it is all around us, yes. Absolutely, yeah. So you're born on January 8th?
Yes.
So that's R. Kelly's birthday, right?
Yes. Art Kelly, Elvis Presley.
And David
I don't know if you. Yeah,
David
it's
Bowie.
David Bowie.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard of what's his name? Noble Drew Ali.
No.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was the prophet for the Moors. The Moorish
interesting.
Nation.
Interesting. Yes. So the whole R. Kelly thing. We're going a little off tangent a little bit,
yes.
but the whole R. Kelly thing I found to be very interesting, and maybe you can speak to this because here's what I understand. Okay, I hung out one day with one of James Brown's guys down in L.A. and he told me the story that there was a guy in the business that was extremely angry and jealous of R. Kelly. I think R. Kelly had stole his girl or something, and he decided to get back at R. Kelly and get him hooked on young women, and then he set him up basically.
Wow.
But apart from that, though, I mean, here is a classic example of a black male who was successful, and now all of a sudden he does this hard left turn. He's accused of being a pedophile, sleeping with young women. He does that whole thing, the closet video, you know, and what we have here is literally the desecration of the black male in the form of R. Kelly.
Yes. Yes.
And I want to talk to you about what do you think is going on here? Why are they making the black female in some regards, or trying to trying to make the black female obsolete? What do you think is happening here at a core level with denying the power and the femininity of the black woman, and more importantly, the denaturing of not just the black race, but also the white race too? What is going on here?
Yes. This is, like you said, the New World Order. This is, you're getting into the Illuminati, and it's not about, right now, it's about them controlling the masses, you see.
Right.
As we're going into the Aquarian age, Aquarius is the sign of the humanitarian ruler. When you put my holistic axis, Aquarius being the sign of the humanitarian, its opposite sign, Leo, being the sign of the ruler. So December 21st is when we officially are into the Aquarian age. And this was what the Star of David was indicating, us being wounded as the original, power, or the original rulers of the earth, you see.
Mm-hmm.
Now how those wounds are to be healed, so we can evolve to the new rulership, out of an abusive rulership into a humanitarian rulership for the new age, the evolution, Aquarius being the sign of evolution. So it's time for evolution to a humanitarian rulership. I say there's only one sin, and that's the abuse of power. So they have abused their power, and now it's time for the abusive rulership to fall and an evolution of the humanitarian rulership. That's why the wounds have to be healed. In the black race, the original, rulers, so they can evolve and become a humanitarian rulership out of this abusive rulership.
Right.
So that's the theme I'm looking at, because that's what the Star of David is indicating, that those wounds are about to be healed. And as we go into this Super Bowl, because this information has to unfold to me when I look at those symbols, you see, and what they represented. So as we get 4 years later, down the line from the giants and the patriarchs, now 4 years later, after the Star of David, this is when we get this Super Bowl. And I got this, when I went to your link is when I realized that Eli Manning was indeed a Capricorn, you see,
right,
representing the royal daughter, of character. She is supposed to be the true ruler of the earth. But she is the spirit of character. That means, and how the earth is the only one who has not reached its sacred status, because she's been compromised in her sacredness, because we have been compromising character for materialism, or the matrix, the maw of tricks, or materialism, the mother of terror, the maw of terror, materialism. So we have not been walking in the spirit of character, which is Daughter Earth's energy. You see, for her to evolve, we now have to walk in the spirit of character, which is an exact opposition to the. Before we get to this Super Bowl, we have to go to last year's Super Bowl, because here we had the Steelers, again, the royal daughter of character,
right?
You see, up against who? The Packers. So this is where we get the homosexual theme.
Interesting.
Character versus degradation. And degradation wins, you see.
Well, there's also a lot of very interesting symbolism, Freemasonic symbolism associated with the Packers and the G, the letter G. And, well, okay. And then of course, you've got Aaron Rodgers, right?
Yes.
And what do they call, screwing in British slang? They call it rogering somebody, a good rogering.
Oh my gosh! And then of course the Packers. I'm trying to stay objective when I look at these symbols. So I go looking for the symbolism of the Packers, you know, and that's of course, packing the fudge, packing,
right.
whatever. And then you got daughter character versus this homosexual theme, and and that is when the Packers win, and I'm trying to make sense of this. Then my spirit points out to me that it's just signifying that we are at the time of Sodom and Gomorrah. You see, where the angels come to Lot and tell him to leave, because God is getting ready to destroy the wicked, city, and the townsmen come and says, "Who are those men? Who are those men?" They looking at the angels, talking about, "Bring them out so we can have sex with them." And then Lot says, "These are holy men. You can't have sex. I'd rather you take my virgin daughter than to touch these sacred men. We don't want your virgin daughter. We want those men." So this was the whole thing behind that Super Bowl, where they turned down the value of having sex with the daughter and chose to have sex with the other men instead.
Well, so, and to your point, the band was The Who, right?
Yes.
It was The Who, and Pete Townsend is a registered sex offender because he was caught with child porn on his computer, and he had to, explain that way. But it wasn't. It was boys. And if you go and look at one of his big hits, it's his post 2. It's called Rough Boys, and it's all about being roughed up and having hard sex with young males.
Yes, absolutely.
So, and one of the big themes in Tommy, or Quadrophenia, it's actually Tommy, not Quadrophenia, it's Tommy, who is the deaf, dumb, blind kid. He gets molested by his Uncle Ernie in Tommy. And so, so I think you're on that. You're really on that with that Super Bowl.
Yes. And look at the energy that unfolds from that Super Bowl. The homosexuality has had a banner year. Capping it off, of course, with the Penn State debacle.
Yeah.
And they've repealed the Don't Ask, Don't Tell. They've legitimized, same-sex marriages as equal. They've had a banner year as a result of the energy they unfold from that ritual, with homosexuality, winning that contest. All the energy unfold as a result of that ritual.
Well, this is a very interesting topic you bring up, and I think it dovetails with the blending of the races and the eradication of racial memory, right? Because
Yes.
I think the big plan here is to eradicate racial memory, eradicate gender memory, eradicate social memory, just eradicate it all.
Yes.
And out of this, we have the symbol of Baphomet, which is the male female. It is the hybrid. It is the forced, and I believe this clearly, the forced reconciliation of all opposites.
Absolutely, and that was Obama's role to come in and do, to remove any sovereignty. You see, he's already attacking that. No identification, with your sovereign nation or your sovereign nationality. You see, going back to the theme of the Antichrist. Another thing they say that he lifts himself above God. Well, of course, he feels he's got the black God, he's got the white God, he's got the Jewish God, he's got the Muslim God.
Right?
So
Who is he? Who is he? Is he black? Is he white? Is he Muslim? Is he? Who is this guy? Right?
Absolutely. So he has no allegiance to anyone. You see.
Right.
So his thing is to erase all, erase all boundaries to a national identity. You see, bring in the New World Order. You see, so blend it all in under one elite group, control. That's what.
I'm sorry. You know what's fascinating is that they bring up this whole concept of diversity, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And look, you and I right now are having a real moment in diversity.
Yes.
But it's not a forced moment, and it's not a PC moment. Right?
Yes.
So
absolutely.
I do believe that it's diversity, but it's diversity where we're coming from our own individual strengths. And
absolutely.
Yes.
We don't have to see energy. You have to balance energy. You don't blend it. You balance it. You see. You don't mingle it. You balance it. Each one stands in its own mastery. And it brings that to the table to contribute to the whole, the one and all and the all in one. We each bring our own form of mastery and contribute to the whole. It's not about trying to blend, but it's about balancing all aspects, to come together to make the one. And see, that's what the Sodom and Gomorrah is all about. No boundaries, you see.
Right.
Indulge in your lower nature. If you feel like being with a child, be with a child. If you feel like being with an animal, be with an animal. If you feel like being, it's taking it into a degenerate rotation. There's only two rotations of energy. That's the regeneration or the degeneration.
Mm-hmm.
And it begins with the it does begin with interracial relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which takes us next to homosexuality, which then diverses into pedophilia, then into bestiality, and then into necrophilia. So that is the rotation they're trying to put us in. Also, another term for the packers, it's like meat packers. In other words, we're talking about the common man.
Right.
So we're looking at the peasants versus royalty.
Right. Yeah.
So they want to make. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you finish your thought. I didn't mean to cut you off. And I'll circle back. So it's about the common peasants and royalty.
Yeah, the common man. In other words, they want to make us all blend us, turn us into a common man with no national agenda or loyalty. So that we all become, what they call the mutt, see, or the peasant, and then they will become the royalty, the elite that is in control of the peasants.
Right. I agree with you. Now, I want to be clear that I'm a firm believer in free will, whatever that is. And now for me, free will is about aligning with my higher will, because that's the freest expression of my will that I can tap into. But if somebody wants to explore a same-sex relationship, that's their choice theoretically. And I'm not denigrating that person for that choice. What I have an issue with is I have an issue with the marketing and the social engineering aspect around this.
Yes, and that's exactly my sentiment. It's not personal, and I always tell people it's not personal, but when you are forcing this from a collective, when you're making this a national agenda,
it's a global agenda. It's a global agenda.
A global agenda. Then that's when I have an issue with it. You see.
Yeah, and the ability to talk about this in the way that you and I are talking about it.
Yes.
I got to tell you, it is so politically incorrect that you and I would be labeled hateful. We'd be labeled regressive. All these things, they would demonize us.
Yes.
Without even hearing what we have to say.
Yes, absolutely. You know, and that's why I call myself a holistic. I'm trying to look at the whole picture. You know, anytime you divide, that's how you conquer. Anytime you break it down to individual details and only look at it based on those criteria, you're not seeing the whole picture. That's how you're getting the illusion. And that's what the 9/11 was all about. You know, Hercules going through the twin gateways or the twin towers to keep illusion intact, you see, because it was after 9/11 is where, you know, they were able to clamp down in the name of, protecting our rights, in other words, let the government, dictate, this is how we now can't go through an airport without being scanned and all of that. So this is how we're willingly giving up our individual rights, you see, for them to keep the illusion of a threat, you see, in the name of our protections, you see. So Hercules going through the twin gateways to keep illusion intact rather than bringing on the regeneration so we can evolve to another and higher level of spiritual empowerment based on humanitarian and righteous principles of rulership.
Well, I agree with you. And as you were talking about this, it's like, oh wow, okay, who won that Super Bowl? Well, it was the Patriots. And where did they install right after 9/11? The Patriot Act. So there are
the Patriot Act.
There are no coincidences.
Absolutely.
I'm having a wonderful conversation with you, Sister Myra. This is great stuff.
Same here. And I'm so glad that that we can talk about this without taking it personal, you see.
Sure.
And that's why I say holistic. If we got to look at the whole picture to see actually the manipulation and the maneuvering that's going on, to pit us against each other, so that we don't, I take my side, you take your side, and then we don't put it together to see the real deal that's happening here.
Right. Can we? I want to just talk for a moment, and we're going to circle back to the end of this, the Madonna Super Bowl ritual and what happened with Whitney. We're going to get there, I promise.
Yes.
But I want you to I want you as a deeply empowered Black woman to tell us, to share with us some of the special attributes that a Black woman has in this world. What is it that is the jewel, the real jewels that Black women have to offer this planet?
Well, you heard as above, so below, you see. But in opposite, you see, physical is opposite of the spiritual. A lot of people don't realize that, you see.
Right.
It's not about mingling, it's about balancing the two. And so what you see at the physical level, you're seeing only a part of the whole, and you're only looking at the illusion. But you have to understand the truth is exactly opposite at a collective or spiritual level. So the Black woman, as I have identified her as Cinderella, looking at the word cinder, which means carbon, L, divinity, La, feminine, the Black divine feminine. The Cinderella story was about the Black woman being put at the bottom of the totem pole in her value.
Interesting.
And how she has to teach the prince character, you see. Negative is the feminine pole. Negative doesn't mean bad. It just means the feminine pole versus the positive pole. I look at things from energy, you see. So the feminine pole. So actually, the black woman being at the bottom of the totem pole at the physical illusionary level reflects her as just the opposite in the spiritual level as the high priestess.
Right.
Daughter Earth, the last Earth sign, Capricorn, represents daughter Earth. As you see, Capricorn sits at the very top of the chart, you see. And daughter Earth, the individual aspects of daughter Earth, is the black woman, just like the individual aspects of the black man represents the sun, S-U-N, as the collective, but individually the S-O-N, you see.
Right.
So the black woman is representing actually the Cinderella story. She's the Sophia, the rejected stone that becomes the cornerstone. It's in her rejection and redemption that the world is transformed, you see. Because, you know, in other words, she represents the energy of character, daughter character. You have the queen with Mama Universe. It's Mother Universe, Mama Universe, and Daughter Earth. If you don't understand that, you don't understand the true nature between those two aspects. It's Father Spirit and the Prince of Power, with the fire and the axis that represents the air and fire is the masculine or the external, which is the Father and the Son. The internal or the hidden realm, you know, which is the black, is the mystery, the hidden. You know, the hidden power is the internal power, you see, which is mama and daughter. So daughter represents character, mama represents love, the unconditional love. So we have to redeem the value of love, you see, and that's symbolic of uplifting the black woman. And taking down, you know, compromising character for materialism, which is the maw of terror, or the matrix, which is the maw of tricks, you see, at the illusionary level, you see.
And there's such a seduction going on right now with materialism, and especially materialism in music. You get songs by Jay-Z, Run This Town, and you know, it's all mired and entrenched in materialism. So I guess for me, when I ask you that question, you know, I used to manage an apartment building in Oakland. I did that for close to 4 years, and I very closely and worked very closely with black women. They would come in and run units for me, and I saw some really incredible stories with some of the women who would have to, you know, work 2 jobs, be on AFDC, and then boom, they'd be on to their next apartment, moving up. And you know, I was really struck by the amount of love and determination that these women were capable of. Not all of them. I have strippers.
Yes, absolutely.
Dealers live in my place, so I'm not making a blanket statement, but
absolutely.
But it really struck me that the capacity to love, which is I think what you're talking about, was one of the things that was very profound for me when I really stepped back and looked at that time and seeing them.
Yes. And Robert, we're mainly, it's not so much the black woman in per se. The black woman represents the daughter, but it's the black mother, which represents the cosmos or Mama Universe, you see. And it's that is what is being undermined, is the black mama. You know, if you don't understand the importance of the black mother, then you're not seeing the significance. Because, you know, getting back to Obama, you see you know, you have to. If we understood that you have to have a black mama to be black, we would not have been manipulated into thinking we were electing Obama as the first black president. You understand what I'm saying?
Sure, right.
And I'm not saying that it's bad to be a hybrid. I'm not saying that on a personal level. But what makes it bad is when you're using that fact to manipulate the masses in order to gain control, you are being deceptive. You're putting yourself up as something that you're not. And that is one of the things that they said about the Antichrist, is that you stand in a place you ought not, which means he stands as a black man, which he is not. And this is how he is manipulating the masses. But, he is, so it's a deception. It's the biggest deception of all time, because he never promised black people anything. Black people never asked him for anything because we just supported him unconditionally, thinking, caught up in that. And that's what they said about the Antichrist. He will charm the people. He will come up through a small people. He will denounce the God of his father. And when he denounced Minister Farrakhan, that's exactly what he was doing, denouncing the God of his father, or the Muslim God, you see.
Right.
So he's following the script. My spirit is one woke me up saying Obama's nation, and put it together as abomination.
Right.
And then that make us desolate. When I go and look at the scripture, the abomination that make us desolate, and this is what he's doing right now. He's actually wiping out, the black nation. He's actually genociding Africa right now, you see.
Yes.
And but they needed a black face to do that, you see.
Well, they needed a black face, but they didn't need a black face that was too black, right? I mean,
yes, absolutely.
Keys would never have been elected president of the United States.
Absolutely.
He's too black.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm saying. When you're using that, as a tool of manipulation, that's what makes it bad. I'm not trying to say on a personal level, I'm not trying to undermine anyone, as you said, the freedom of choice, the freedom of free will. But that is what they're trying to take away from us, you see, by, manipulating us at a perspective that we're not aware of, you see.
Right.
And this is, why, I'm making it my business to try to expose this. And like I said, it's all about the mama, taking away the black mama, because you cannot create the hybrid with a black mama. I actually heard a commercial when he first got elected here in Greensboro, and this was on a black radio station, and they were talking about Black Friday, and they were saying, come and get you a car on Black Friday, and we will give you a discount in honor of our new black president. If you come with a white woman, we'll give you an extra discount.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. So what they're doing is legitimizing the idea of the black man, getting a white woman, you see, and casting away his black woman because they can't make the hybrid with the black mother.
Right.
It's all about the black mother. And then you go back to the movies The Blind Side, with Sandra Bullock, you see, and then Precious, where the black mother is being demonized, you see. We can go down the line with the black mother that has to be taken out, going back to Earth, Wind, and Fire, you see, in order to fulfill this agenda. And it was capped off with Madonna. Now you look at the first thing out of her mouth was coming up against Janet Jackson, who represented the black matriarch, versus the white Madonna. And Madonna and matriarch are both words for mother.
Right. So we're going to jump into Madonna here with the last 20 minutes of the show. But I was just thinking about this whole concept of the black woman, and I was flashing on the whole Big Mama series, and with Martin Lawrence. I mean, it's not even a woman; it's a man playing a woman, a black woman.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. And now they got a show coming on, and black women. Then they had some Asian guy come out and say black women were the ugliest women on the planet. We had a black man come out and say black women should just go ahead and get with white men. I mean, giving us away. You see.
Yeah.
It's definitely an attack. But it's about the black mama in particular. Now they got a program coming out, And what's interesting to me is that these are two 30-minute shows, and they're showing them back to back. One of them is called Chloe and Lamar, and the other one is called Ice-T Loves Coco.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Why would you do that? Why would you put these shows on back to back? What message are you sending here? You see.
Yeah, and we had the whole Kardashian debacle with
the Kardashian. Yeah, and then let's not leave out Don Cornelius. You see.
Yeah, Don Cornelius.
And go on.
And who did Kim Kardashian marry? She married a fellow who was mixed, and she didn't even really love him. You know, she left Reggie Bush for this poor kid who plays for the New Jersey Nets, who's mixed, white mother, and she dumps him. Let's talk about Madonna real quickly. You made some great points about this and the white mother, especially in the key sequence where it's "Give Me All Your Lovin'," and you noted that all the cheerleaders in that sequence are all black females. Yes,
all black females. That was the black children. Her whole message, and then she had CeeLo up there. She bowed down twice to CeeLo, you see.
Yeah.
And so her message was, we've taken your man, black woman, and now we're going to take you out and then become the surrogate mother to your children, which is exactly what rolled out with Whitney Houston. And Madonna has always had an obsession against Whitney Houston. You see, I saw a videotape where she was talking about her song was #1, and she went back the next day, and Whitney had bumped her, and she had fell down to #4. She actually showed up at a ceremony with the same exact dress as Whitney Houston. And then there was a blog that a white lady wrote that indicated, of course, from the position of the audience, you saw the big M, you see, for Madonna, but from Madonna's perspective, it was a W.
Yeah.
And here she is, got these boots and tramping down this W under her foot, and, and of course, them both being Leo, Whitney and, Madonna being the Leo, and then exactly that's what happens, because Bobby Brown, Whitney Houston had been known for staying true to Bobby Brown, you see, which was symbolic of the black woman staying true to her black man, even though he hasn't recognized her value to him, but staying true to her man. So Whitney was the poster child for that, all the way up until he and the woman, I don't know for sure, but the manager, the one who he ended up with, she does look like she could be a hybrid. I can't say for sure she is, but she looks like she could be a hybrid, and he ended up getting her pregnant while he was still with Whitney, and she was the manager for them, you see. So this would definitely follow the theme of what Madonna was saying about, taking your man, then taking you out, and then becoming the surrogate mother to your children. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, Bobby Brown did come and get Christina, and took her from the West Coast to the East Coast, but she didn't stay there very long. She left. But that would definitely have followed through in that energy that the Madonna was symbolizing in her halftime ritual.
Yeah. Yeah, I personally, I think Bobby Brown is mind controlled. That's my own personal.
I do too. I'm very suspicious because I saw a reporter talk to Bobby 2 weeks before Whitney's death, and he was talking about how much he was on point in his sobriety and how it was hard taking it day by day. But when the reporter asked him about Whitney, he tried to insinuate that she was not staying on that path. But I find it interesting that everyone closest to her were saying that she was staying on that path. So why would Bobby say she wasn't when everybody else close to her say that she was doing great in that area? So that is what brought my antennas up. And, you know, so I do think that he is even part of what, you know, has transpired here.
Yeah, I think a lot of weird stuff happened in New Edition. And, you know, I mean, you know, I just, you get these, like Lou Pearlman, who ran all those boy bands, was a total pedophile. And that includes New Kids on the Block, by the way, who he ran in conjunction with Maurice Starr, who is the founder, the originator of New Edition. And what does Maurice Starr mean? It's dark star, right? So, so I think a lot of weird stuff happened in New Edition, and out of that you have some pretty compromised individuals, specifically Bobby Brown, Aquarius. You know what's really interesting is that if you look at, by the way, I think Nick Cannon plays the same role for Bobby that he's playing with Mariah Carey. And really trippy stuff, right? So Nick Cannon has been in the hospital. You see all these pictures with, tubes and stuff in him, and there's Mariah by his side. There was a very similar thing that happened to Bobby with Whitney, right? And he was in hospital. I think these events are set up to traumatize Mariah and Whitney, you know, and to get them to buy in deeper to what was happening. You know, Bobby used to put stuff in her bedroom, like all-seeing eyes. He was crazy with that stuff, you know?
Right. And then I heard that the reason that she finally left him, you know, he spit on her, and then he cut off her head on the pictures. And it was at that point that even Bobby Christina told Whitney to leave him, and she said she could not hang with him anymore. You know, and then so that's why I said she was the poster child of trying to stay true to the black man, and this is why Madonna, you know, used her, you know, to symbolize black women, give up your man. Now she's got, and she played that on the halftime show. She's that video, Like a Prayer, and if you've ever watched the video Like a Prayer, it's all about her taking the black man. You know, he's turned into a statue like Jesus, and she brings him back to life. And the black woman, in other words, she's indicating that it was through me that I brought you back to life and the joy.
Right.
And they even show the black woman lifting her up. The black woman's in the choir role while she's in a skimpy outfit, and him and her are, you know, in this seductive, you know, form in front of the children in the church. You see, and she even did the Like a Prayer at the Super Bowl ritual. So it's about, you know, any black woman trying to hang on to the black man, you know, give him up. You see, this is the tie that you know, we're going to open up here in this ritual. You see, and remember, Whitney also played in the Cinderella. She played the fairy godmother.
She played Brandy's godmother, fairy godmother in Cinderella. Brandy, of course, the sister of Ray J.
Yes.
Who now again was trying to play the Nick Cannon role in Whitney's life.
Yes, but looking at the symbolism of the giants versus the patriarchs this time around, at the heels of the daughter falling, you know, in the Cabala information, and you know that Madonna is very versed in Kabbalic information. Well, I have some Kabbalic information where they talk about the father, the mother, and the son all prepare to raise the fallen daughter. The Hay mother, the Yod father, and Va son once more symbolically unite with the final Hay, the daughter, raising the fallen daughter, the animal soul or matter, to the throne of the mother, where the earthly component, the daughter, is redeemed by her marriage with the son and is thereby set up on the throne of the mother. This comes out of the Cabala. So when you look at the 4 teams, last teams in the playoffs this year, that's exactly the scenario you get. You get Baltimore representing the sun. It's Leo energy, and Baltimore represents the black. The Ravens is the black hidden power, the sun. Then the sun first went up against the patriarchs, which is saying the individual black man or the physical black man trying to go up against this illusion. He can't do it on his own. Mm-hmm. And then you had the
49ers.
Giants. Against the 49ers. And when I looked up the symbolism of the 49ers, it represents the high mama, the royal mama, you know, the mother of saints, you see, the mother without stain. So it represented the mother, and then, of course, the giants, of course, we're looking at Neberu, the Nephilim. Yeah. But what struck me was the Eli Manning. Remember the EL, follow the trail of the EL.
Right.
And then you identified him as Capricorn, representing the royal daughter. So when you look at the E.L. Manning, you got the royal man, which is the royal father coming from the highest realm, you see, and where he takes out the mother is where the son, Baltimore took out the Steelers. It was the son's way of saying, sit back, black woman, you've already done your part, let me go forward. And try to challenge this. Well, he couldn't do it by himself. And it was the same as the royal father, the giant, saying to the royal mother, you sit back. So the masculine half told the feminine half that we're going to step up and take this challenge on, you see. And this is the father now redeeming the fallen daughter, you see.
Right.
So that's what it was symbolic of with the Steelers falling last year, or character falling. Now we have the high father coming from another level to come in and redeem the daughter by uplifting the son, to come up against the system that is trying to undermine this whole, going contradictory to what the Star of David was indicating.
Interesting. You know, the last, I was thinking about it, and the last four winning quarterbacks have all been fourth quadrant in terms of astrology quarterbacks. You have Eli Manning, Capricorn, this past year, right? Last year, Aaron Rodgers, Sagittarius. Year before that, Drew Brees, Capricorn. And then the year before that, Eli Manning, Capricorn. So we're all really 9th, 10th house quarterbacks. Wow. Yeah.
Wow. And that's a SAR and a set. Symbolically, you see. So, when you start looking at it from an energy perspective, when you start looking at it, like you said, from astrological energy, from numerology energy, then this is how you're going to get, a larger perspective than, keeping us literal, keeping us caught up in our emotional allegiance,
right.
Rather than seeing the larger picture of what is really, being influenced here, you see.
Well, our 2 hours have just sped by, Sister Myra.
Yes.
So if people want to find out more about you and the work that you do, could they go to bigmamamagic.com? Is that the best place to get a hold of you?
Yeah, I'm not, the reason I'm not really promoting that so much is because I really don't have a lot of control over that site. I can't really, input my own information. So I do a lot of my output through the Facebook. That's where I do output a lot of my information. And then just contacting me personally. And the best way to do that would be, by phone or messaging me through Facebook. But those are usually the best method to catch, where I will put out what I'm doing, or where I'm going. I do lectures. I've lectured in, like I said, Baltimore, New York, Atlanta, Houston, Detroit, Indianapolis. I've lectured in all these places, of course, North Carolina, and now Virginia. I just came from Richmond this weekend. So that's where I usually will put, what my agenda is. And, so I would recommend coming through Facebook to really get a perspective
And,
of what
and,
I'm doing.
and your sister Myra on Facebook, right?
Yes, SISTAR MYRAH.
Okay, so Sister Myra,
Yes.
SiStar Myrah on Facebook. Go and find her, friend her, learn more about her fascinating world. And as a Capricorn, you've got Pluto coming up towards your sun. You got to feel pretty excited about that on some level.
Oh yes, I'm I'm standing on a cardinal cross. I mean, I've got a grand cardinal cross in my chart, you see. So
wow.
I feel like this is, and I got a natural chart because I do have an Aries rising, you see. So all my energy does fall in its natural houses. So, I just feel like this is my mission. But I do want, to express, not to take my information personally. I have nothing personally against anyone, you see.
Right.
And so, and if you're not able to look beyond the personal level, then, I'm not here to offend or undermine anyone, you see. Come into it with a holistic view, a holistic perspective, just as we have done today, and I think, we can all see the importance of exposing this information at that level.
Well, I'd love to have you back on, and maybe we'll circle back as the Olympics come up here and talk about the Olympics as another mega ritual. So thank you again for sharing.
You're welcome.
This really enlightening and profound information, and you have an absolutely great day, okay?
And you do the same, and thank you so much for bringing me in to express this to your audience.
It's been absolutely my pleasure.
Same here.
All
Have
right.
a good day.
Thank
All right.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That was Sister Myra, all the way from North Carolina. And I apologize if you're waiting for a reading. Like I was just going with the energy today, just going with the flow. Very cool show. She had a lot of really amazing things to bring up. And it's not often that we get to have a perspective that is outside of the one that I share on a frequent basis. So I appreciate Sister Myra bringing the gnosis around this whole concept and understanding of the black woman, or the queen, and the princess, and as it relates to what's happening in terms of not only her displacement, but also the displacement of other very rich cultures and races in individual stories in favor of this synthetic fusion of one overarching, mutated and forced version of oneness. Okay, so I appreciate her bringing her perspective and her own unique slice to this conversation, where we really honor one another's diversity to the best that we can, and that's it. That's where it's at. All right, so I'll be back on Friday with Constance Demby and John Friedlander. We're going to talk about music. We're going to talk about culture, and we're going to talk about John's book, which is called I believe it's called The Physics. It's right over there, sitting next to me. John Friedlander. We're going to talk about his. I'm going to get the book. Hold on. I don't want to blow this. Psychic Psychology, Energy Skills for Life and Relationships, John Friedlander. We're going to be talking with John about this book. Very interesting book. And that's it. I want to thank everybody for retweeting this show as we went into it. That includes Janet, T-Power, Gianda, the queens of the retweets. Thank you. Appreciate that. And I'll talk into the chat. I hate that. And that's it. I'll see you on Friday. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to accept what's possible. Thanks again to Sister Myra. Have a great 222.
We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words, I submit that these impressions are valid and significant. And I will even say this, such an impression is a clue that at some past time point, a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this, an alternative world branched off.